Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shawnee Smith, founder of SJS Writes. Welcome to SJS Writes one-on-one author interview series. I am delighted to introduce to you our guest, Miss Evelyn English, who willingly agreed to discuss her latest book entitled Brainy Acts, which is a valuable asset that has been helping families prepare their children for success. Miss Evelyn English earned a Master's of Education from National Louis University, Evanston, Illinois. She is a family engagement specialist, a certified reading specialist, and an early childhood education, author of Gift of Literacy, Reading is Thinking, Dynamic Tools for Literacy and Language Development, which is published in English and Spanish, and her latest book, Brainy Acts, Build Your Child's Brain for Success. Miss English has collaborated with the Maryland State Education Board, and she has served as a local, state, and national board of education, and is a founding member of the National Association of Family, School, and Community Engagement. Miss English believes all students are able. She believes engagement is key. Her commitment to inclusiveness and high quality education includes the explicit teaching of research-promoted thinking processes, literacy strategies, and language growth techniques. Ms. English believes parents, multi-generational families, education, and advocates who work together to consistently provide diverse and fun-filled experiences using the correct resources will promote proficiency and success for all learners. Welcome, Ms. Evelyn English, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you for asking.
We should begin with the first question about your book. What inspired you to write Brainy Acts? How did you come up with the title? And what age group does Brainy Acts target?
What a question. What a question. Very, very inclusive question. Just as Brainy Acts is inclusive and it is available to all learners. It's available to all learners, but we're focusing on 0 to 5 years of age, birth to 5 years of age. We're looking at actions parents and families can take to prepare a child's mind for success. Brainy Acts is timeless learning. I was inspired to write Brainy Acts by my own family, starting with my maternal grandmother. She was always so available to answering questions and responding to inquiries from all of us. But I was especially interested and wanted to know many things. And while you would often hear, don't ask those questions, my grandmother always responded to questions, and there was a backstory. And so Brainy Acts, the actions parents and families can take, was prompted in my early years of learning from my grandmother, where she inspired the answering of questions and then adding a backstory, which is an excellent technique for learning. So Brainy Acts, Prepare Your Child's Brain for Success, is timeless learning. I refer to my grandmother. It's timeless learning. It's learning that parents and families and educators and advocates can always use to develop understanding about not only how to teach in parents and families, but it inspires the students to be curious and want to learn more about whatever it is that is being talked about. Brainy Acts is written in sets of information, and I call these my grandmother's backstories. These sets of information and the naming of each of the actions that you would take to develop the mind was inspired by the backstory. So I use those backstories and the evidence that is now promoting and has been promoting for a while now the development of the mind, the development of critical thinking, reasoning, and problem solving, the development of literacy, foundational literacy, the reading, the writing, the speaking, the development of language, responding to questions, and investigating, creating an imagination. And so I was inspired to write Brainy Acts by my own family, my maternal grandmother, my parents. And then as I worked as an educator throughout the United States and Europe in diverse communities, and spoken with, as I spoke with multi-generational families, they were often so curious about what is it that keeps my learner or my child so interested in completing your writing lessons, your reading lessons, or the lessons that they are asked to complete. And I always thought about how if I could create an audience or an environment where students were free to ask many questions, to investigate, to create, if I could create opportunities for them to add to their bank of understanding, then this would become the timeless learning that we all must do and we all must need, and will make us successful throughout our lives.
Well, Ms. English, it sounds like Brainy Acts is really multifaceted. You know, Brainy Acts targets the 12 functions of the brain. Can you tell us what are the 12 functions and why is it so important to target these functions during early childhood?
I mentioned that once again, I'm referring to my family and my grandmother, and these 12 targets are the 12 backstories. These are inclusive actions that parents and families can take without adding clock hours. It's ongoing learning. The 12 functions are the backstories. It's important to target these functions because we want variety in our teaching and in our learning. We want our children to know and appreciate difference, their own creativity and their own uniqueness. And so as I thought about the variety in terms of the learning and teaching for the parents and families, as I thought about the inclusiveness for all children, it doesn't matter whether you're a farmer's daughter or you're a New York, a person who's gone to school far, far away or in other countries, it's for everyone. The 12 targets are entwined in the development of learning that spreads across all content areas. It's inclusive in terms of the individual, the learner. It's inclusive in terms of the content for learning. It's inclusive in terms of the teaching patterns for the families. Some parents are very interested in teaching, others are not so interested, but there's an inclusiveness about it. There is equitable learning for all students. Now, what are these Brainy Acts? And so we'll look at each one and we'll talk a little bit about them. I like to use the quote that the mind is open, this inclusive mind, this equitable teaching, this timeless learning is open to not what you do know, but what you can learn and what you can create. And so let's start with the inquisitive brain. So often we have our small children and it's question after question after question. And so we call that the inquisitive brain. It's responding to questions that and giving responses that are appropriate for the age group. We mentioned that this was birth to age 5 that we're focusing on. Of course, it can be used with others, but we're focusing on birth to age 5. So when there are questions, we want responses that are equitable and will appreciate the difference in their own learning, in the learner's own learning. When we talk about the vocal brain, speaking is incredibly important. We want to talk with our children. We want to develop language. And so the vocal brain is simply developed by saying to our students that, of course, you may have a drink, but we ask, what kind of drink would you like? Would you like a large drink or a small drink? Then we go on to the foundational literacy brain, and we include writing, we mean the scribbling, we mean the drawing, as well as the formation of letters. So the literacy brain is just read to your learner, read with your learner, discuss with your learner. Just read is sort of what we talk about there. It's not, the most important thing is not to get through the story, but it's to develop an understanding about the content, about the walk in the park. Literacy can be developed on your walk in the park. Literacy can be developed in your activities as you're preparing for a trip to the grocery store or a trip to activities that your students might have. So we have the development of the inquisitive brain, the vocal brain, the literacy brain, that includes the writing brain, which is scribbling, the artistic brain. So often we think of education as being a science, but educating is a science and an art, and it includes the arts. It includes the dance. It includes the whatever it is that your child is interested in. We look at the managerial brain, and you think, but for 0 to 5, a managerial brain? Of course. They need to know how to manage their emotions. They need to know how to wait to hear a response. Our learners need to understand how to decide whether they'll need a rain jacket or a sweater or no jacket at all. The managerial brain can and should be developed 0 to 5 years. The emotionally intelligent brain is the well-being. It's the development of the whole child. Did you hear and understand my instructions? Did I give instructions that you're able to follow based on your development stage? The emotionally intelligent brain, the development of the whole child. The critical brain. Let's look at this assessment. We mean that you have choices. You know, is this a delicious lunch? Is this not a lunch that you would favor? Is this not your first choice? So when we look at the critical brain, we look at a brain that has decision-making options, and we teach in these actions parents and families can take to develop the mind how to do that. We have the diagnostic brain, the innovative brain, creating. Let's play. Of course we're going to play. And many times we're so tempted to designate, here are the rules and here are the options and here are the directions. Of course it's important. We've already said it's important, but the most important piece is to provide opportunities for our learners to create their own way, to play. Here is the way I would like to use this circle. Here is what I would like to add to this rectangle. Here is what color of pen or pencil or toy that I would like to have. So provide opportunities for your learner to innovate. The strategic brain, the strategies. There are strategies. And no doubt, your earliest learner, your youngest learner, you're strategizing. You know, if I cry a bit, I'll get more attention. If I'm very, very hungry and I sort of hang on to my tummy and go whine a little bit, those are strategies that are used very early. Now, we're not encouraging that, but we begin to strategize very early on. We strategize very early on. The strategic mind. Developing the mind, developing timeless learning. And then we didn't save the athletic brain for the last, but it probably is the most common one. Now, of these 12 minds that we're developing, we obviously can separate them out. And there are lessons and backstories to separate them out. But the integrating of these stories provides an opportunity for our learner to have choices. What is it that I'm interested in? What is it that I like to do? What is it that I most want to develop? We want to make them aware that the options are available to them, and then they will help us to decide how to move forward and how to help them focus. The 12 functions of the brain, the developing of the mind. It's important to do this because every child is different. Every child should have choices. They should know what those choices are, and the parents and families should be prepared to guide them, to direct them, and to assist them as they move along.
Miss Evelyn, what are the 3 challenges that parents have while engaging their children in learning activities? And how does Brainy Acts help these parents overcome these challenges?
I suspect that, once again, I'll go back to my grandparents and my family, and I suspect that the challenges are very much related to the social times as well as the learning times and the learning opportunities. Now, you might think this quite unusual, but a big challenge for my parents was to hear an inordinate number of questions and respond to those. But my grandparent was able to do that. So some of the challenges, one of the challenges is we make adjustments based on the social times, the learning times, and the needs of your learner and your values as parents, as families, and as educators. Those challenges might include time, and so as we look at these actions that parents and families can take to develop understanding about their children, there are actions that you can take on an ongoing basis without having to structure a learning space. It is always happening. The grocery store, I can't think of a family who doesn't shop at the grocery store. And so as we're shopping at the grocery store and you have one of your younger learners in your basket as you're pushing, and they're curious about the kinds of fruits, the names of the fruits, the names of the vegetables, and the colors of the vegetables, that's basic learning. That's the development of language. That's the development of problem solving. That's the development of the inquisitiveness. It's the beginning of timeless learning. So 2 of the challenges is adjusting to what your beliefs are in terms of a family. Another challenge is you don't need a designated time. It happens all the time. And then one additional thing that I think of is provide an opportunity for your learner to guide you in terms of their interest. Sometimes we're saying, oh, I'm a fantastic scientist, I'm a fantastic dancer, I'm an athlete. My child is going to be a scientist, a dancer, an athlete, but provide opportunities and exposures for your child to say, Mama, Dad, yes, I'd love to be a scientist. Yes, I'd love to be an athlete. Yes, I'd love to be a dancer. And if they're looking for some additional things, then you go off on a journey together to find ways to develop understanding for yourself and that child to do whatever it is that they need to do to build a mind that will be successful for learning for now and for the rest of their lives. What advice?
What advice would you give for parents?
What advice would I give? Be open, be available, and be ready to research and to learn together. That's what I would say.
Sound advice indeed. Miss Evelyn, how can the parents use Brainy Acts to track their children's learning progress?
Accountability in terms of all learning for all age groups isn't important. We must have accountability in building the mind, actions parents and families can take. We have what we are calling brain building journals, mind building journals. And we're reminded by a quote. I've used many quotes throughout Brainy Acts. A strong mind is open to what it doesn't know. A weak mind is open only to what it does know. And so this is encouragement and an incentive, sort of an action plan for accountability. And so if we go to the mind building journal, you'll see that there are opportunities for you not only to focus on individually the mind that you're developing, the specific activity, the duration of time. There are activities that you might use to get you started, and then others will come along as you create. You will look at the duration of time. You have a section for comments and reminders if you would like to refer to the mind building journal. It is an action plan that parents in all groups, it's an inclusive action plan that parents can take to develop and follow a program and guide their learners through. Accountability is incredibly important. I urge you to use the mind building journal to track the progress of your learner success.
How can educators and advocates use Brainy Acts in the classroom?
Actions to prepare a child's mind for success, timeless learning, build a mind that succeeds. The lessons that are evidence promoted and are encouraged from 0 to age 5 and for the rest of their lives can be and should be integrated in what we call our designated curricula. The designated curricula of any high quality early education program is built on 3 pillars. We mentioned those before. The first one with its subsets is thinking, reasoning, and problem solving. All education, that's the first pillar. The second one, foundational literacy, the very basics of your reading, your speaking, and your writing. The third one, language development. It covers all of the content areas. And so to respond directly to the question about how educators and advocates can use or building your mind, Brainy Acts, build your child's brain for success, is to integrate the evidence promoted strategies, processes, and methods into the thinking. Invite parents and families to become a major part of the relationship of learning. Explicitly provide opportunities for parents and families to join you in integrating that curricula into the lessons. So educators, advocates, and families become collaborators in preparing our child's mind for success. Become collaborators, work together.
Where can the audience purchase copies of Brainy Acts?
Brainy Acts, build your child's mind for success. Actions to build a mind that succeeds. Actions to prepare a child's mind for success is available on Amazon.com.
Thank you so much, Miss Evelyn, for sharing your insights on your fantastic book, Brainy Acts, Build Your Child's Brain for Success. All the educators, advocates, parents, people who know children, please purchase the book. You will not be disappointed.
Thank you for asking. Thank you for having me.